everyone, I'm Dr. Z. I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in transgender care. Welcome to my channel. Today I would like to talk to you about a particular space in transition, a particular time frame in transition, because I know that that particular space is very difficult for a lot of you to go through. And actually, in working with one of my clients, this individual used a particular word to define this space. And the minute they used that word, I thought, that's just perfect analogy, albeit a very, very stark and very painful one. But I know that that's how a lot of you feel. So I want to talk to you about the space, and I want to actually offer you some of the tips that can help you not to feel so much pain and not to feel so much space when you're in that space. The space that I'm talking about is mid-transition space frame. It's a space frame between starting point. Your starting point will be your realization that you're transgender, your realization that you have gender dysphoria. Starting point will be maybe going to see a mental health provider and getting that conclusive certainty that yes, in fact, this is gender dysphoria. Or maybe you don't need to go to mental health provider. A lot of people don't. But the starting point will be realizing that you are transgender, that one way or another you don't feel comfortable with your gender assigned at birth. That's the starting point, right? Then also part of the starting point is realizing you need to do something about it and doing something about it. Maybe for some of you, it is going to a medical health provider and getting on hormones. Maybe for some of you, doing some other things. So that's all really, really good starting beginnings. And then there is the mid-transition. The mid-transition is often very much wrapped up in social aspects of transition. This is the time of transition when you are starting to really present to the world more and more as your true gender. This is the time where a lot of your gender expression is being expressed. This is when your appearance starts to be modified to match how you really feel about yourself. This is when you pick your preferred pronouns and pick your preferred name. So this is really a socially emphasized type of space. And the space in between, the mid-transition, I personally often call as being in limbo. The reason why it feels like in limbo is because I know that for a lot of you, it is as if you're doing one of those gymnastic splits. One of your feet are still in gender assigned at birth because there's still some aspects of yourself, especially aspects in relationship to your body that hasn't been really modified yet. The hormones haven't really produced a lot of changes. And then another leg is doing a split in opposite direction towards the future, towards your true gender. And there's a lot of tension as you're doing the split, and you feel like you're being torn between these two worlds, in between the space. And it's especially in limbo space because you're not really exactly fully presenting how you see yourself, or you're not really yet at a stage where you're everything about your gender identity, not only your external appearance, but your internal also and spiritual component of your identity has finally solidified and came into this one mold of who you truly are. So as a result, you're kind of like in between, right? You're in that stage where you're still waiting for the changes to come in. And for some of you who are transmasculine, maybe you're waiting for chest surgery to happen. You're still wearing a binder. Maybe you are still waiting for testosterone to start producing facial hair production. Maybe some of you are waiting for your voice to deepen. Maybe for some of you, waiting for some other factors. For the trans feminine individuals, maybe this is the in-between limbo because you're starting to present and you're trying to express your femininity, but you feel, especially if passability is important to you, you feel that you're not there yet. You feel that you're still waiting for your hair to grow out. Maybe you have the opposite. Maybe you're struggling because you had early hair loss and you have to wear a wig or you have to wear some other hair piece and it's uncomfortable. Maybe you're waiting for the facial hair to be fully removed with electrolysis or laser, or you're still working on your voice. So there's all these elements in between, right, where you're dipping your toes into still retaining your foot in the past and moving one foot forward, and that's a lot of tension. The client I'm working with, the word they use is purgatory. I know that the minute I said it, maybe a lot of you just went, because it's such a strong word, but I think for a lot of you it's going to be such a clear description of what that space feels like, because it genuinely feels way more painful than just a limbo state. It genuinely feels like you're stuck in hell, you are stuck in a place where you're being punished for being who you are. That's a very important component of purgatory. And you feel like you're going to be perpetually stuck in this place without possibility of coming out of it. This is the problem with this space in between, is that it has a tendency to make you feel like you're never going to get out of it, because a lot of goals you're working on, and I'll make another video about the goals to help you understand them and to help you conceptualize them better. But a lot of the goals you're working in the space are what I call maintenance goals, meaning there's things that don't give you immediate results, such as chest surgery. You go, you have chest surgery, and you wake up, you have flat chest, great fast results. Maintenance goals are you keep going for the hair removal, and that takes time, and it takes time to really get full clearance. You're doing voice training, and that takes time. You're taking testosterone, and seeing full effects takes time. You're taking estrogen, and seeing full effects take time. You're starting to feminize yourself with clothing, and maybe for some of you, learning how to really accentuate certain parts of your body and how to cover up parts of your body that maybe you don't necessarily think are benefiting you in any way. By the way, we all do that. Is maintenance goal, because it takes time. So that's why it feels like, it gives you that feeling that this is never going to stop, that you're going to be in there perpetually again and again and again, primarily because you're working on so many maintenance goals and you're not seeing that quick results, all the while things are capitalizing. So this purgatory state, this really shitty, painful state, can be really hard for some of you. And for some of you, it can actually be a space that you move into from the beginning of transition, where so much pain can happen, where you can say, fuck it, where you can say, this is too much, where you can say, this is not worth it, or where you can get so terrified and so scared that you regress all the way back. And I don't want that to happen for you guys, because I know that the space is temporary. I've seen so many people go through the space in so many different elements, in so many different shapes and forms. So I know it is absolutely temporary. And I have witnessed what's on the other side of the space. And I want you to get to the other side of the space. I'm like, a lot of times I feel that when I create these videos, my biggest goal for all of you is to be not a cheerleader for you. I hate the word cheerleading, but to be like this tough, laughing coach, fitness coach, except transition coach maybe, if you will, that is trying to give you all the elements you need to get through, because I know what's waiting for you over here. I really do, and I want you to get there. So you're in mid-transition. Here's some of the biggest things that can make the space unbearable. One of the biggest things I see, and I think the biggest mistakes that some of you make when you move into this transitionary space, is when you do too many things. When you try to present in your true gender way too fast, too much. Now, I'm not saying this to stop you by any means, and some of you are able to do it and able to tolerate it. This is going to be a little bit less difficult and give a little bit less tension to some of you who are maybe identifying as genderqueer, or maybe identifying as perhaps even non-binary, depending on your gender presentation. For some of you who don't give a shit about possibility, this might be easier. For some of you who don't see yourselves as overly feminine, for some of you who don't really give a shit about presenting and fitting the stereotype of the masculinity, it will be easier. For a lot of you, for whom all of those things tend to matter, it's going to be difficult. So a very concrete example is for somebody who identifies as trans feminine. Instead of taking little steps and building up on those little steps, you feel like more confident, and with each little step, you push the envelope further and further. What I see people do is they do too much all at once, overly hyper-feminizing themselves before they even solidified any kind of voice training, or maybe had a little bit more work done on features that can help them present more feminine. And then when you go out there, a lot of misgendering happens, and that is so heartbreaking, and that is so painful. And when that happens, that's when people regress. The same thing with individuals who identified transmasculine. I've seen the same thing happen. The point with all of the stories is the same. Doing too many things at once versus one step, building on it. One step, building on it. So whether it is masculinizing, feminizing, or presenting in any other gender presentation, instead of doing the whole shebang, what is one thing that you can do? Do that. And when you do that, start start getting in the space of feeling comfortable doing that. When you feel you're comfortable, now you're ready for a little bit more tension. Now add to your plate another tension, another little thing. Again, you start to feel comfortable and confident, add another one. And you keep editing as you go through this transitionary space. And every time you add little bites, it's easier for you to handle. I know this because this is how I teach my clients. This is how I work with my clients. And I've seen this work over and over again. What I've seen not work is when people come to me to work with me and they're devastated because they've tried in the past to do all at once. They freaked out. It was too much for them. The world was too cruel. The world was too transphobic toward their authentic self. And as a result, they regressed until finally they decided to do something about it. And they're terrified. When they work with me, sometimes they will say, I'm terrified of this space. And I tell them, don't be, we will take it little steps at a time because steps work. Little steps are not intended to slow any of you down by any means. This is not about slowing your transition down. It's about working your transition in a smart way where you're building not only physical blocks of actual physical presentation, but you're building internal mental blocks for yourself of strengths, of resiliency, of perseverance, of grit. Those elements are important. Transition, by far, the biggest aspects that makes or breaks transition, by far, is also mindset. And managing mindset is difficult. Sometimes you just have to learn things. So, this is my advice to you. If you're moving or if you're finding yourself in this purgatory state, and you feel like it's too much already, ask yourself, what can I take off my plate? What one thing that I need to take off my plate and what one thing I need to work on to perfect it so that I feel more confident moving on to the next thing, okay? If you are thinking about moving it, there's a space and you're terrified, don't be. Just one little step. What's one thing that you can add? What's another thing that you can add? But this is, unfortunately, this is the part that everybody has to go through. There's no way to go through this process. The other ways I've seen people to disregard going through the in limbo and doing the split is when people did a lot of work in hiding, like behind the scenes. What I mean is hiding, maybe not the right word, but in isolation, away from social integration. And then they went and they got the surgeries they needed, and then they suddenly came out. And that's one way to do it, but while you build up the physical, the internal psychological is not strong enough sometimes to sustain. So part of transition is to be able to juggle the both, and the best way to do it is to do it in the steps. So comment below, let me know, have you had this purgatory space? What did that feel like to you? What helped you get out of that purgatory state? And also share with others, if you did the way I teach people to do it is with little steps and how it actually helped you, because I want others to see that this is something viable and this is something that helpful. So comment below, let me know. I love reading all of your comments and I'll see you all next time. Bye.